Okay, so a theme of yours, and I know that this is something that you particularly like to talk about and do and practice, and that is A, the concept of not being precious with your writing, and B, the concept or the discipline of rewriting and your approach to rewrites. So both of those things, from the standpoint of creativity, meaning that if you're too precious or you don't want to rewrite or you don't think rewrites are necessary, that can severely limit your creative output.
What he just said.
Yeah, but if you could just
Expound on that a little?
yeah, for
Sure.
example, I know that you have definitions of what a rewriting process is.
Well, sure. I guess to start with the thing about being too precious. I mean, if you're too precious with your own words, then you are limiting the possibility that you're going to improve your script, right? You're also not really understanding the process to begin with, at least in my opinion. The first draft, and I did say this last time too, the first draft is basically just about getting the ideas out of your head and onto the page and starting to give them some structure. But the first draft is not really ever meant to be read by anybody. It's certainly not. It is the first draft of many, right? And yeah, it's not a finished thing. It's just about sort of getting an idea, starting to learn, right? And if you hold on to those ideas, then you're not going to be able to develop your script. When you begin when you're really rewriting, especially in the earlier draft, second draft, maybe third draft, if you're not bringing at least, I would say at least 30%, but even maybe as much as half new material to the draft, then you're not really rewriting. You're just probably just like editing or swirling words. Rewriting means identifying the aspects of your script that are underdeveloped and then working to further develop those things, coming up with new windows, new set pieces, new character relationships, new moments on the journey, in the adventure. Yeah, stuff like that. And in your second, if the first draft is just about giving it some structure and starting to get to know your characters and your story, your second draft is where you start to get better ideas and bring new ideas of how I can do this better. How can I make it more interesting? How can I make it more dynamic? How can I make it more unique? How can I strengthen the relationship between the two, between the characters so that it's more powerful when I get to the end, right? So that the payoff is actually earned. Yeah, all of those things. I think that's what you were talking about.
Yeah, and I particularly like the part about not being precious with our work, and I'm speaking subjectively now, from a directing perspective, from the writing perspective, from the perspective of being an actor. Ultimately, if the more precious we are, the more we place filters, and the more we limit our ability to receive feedback on how effective we're being
Sure.
at communicating.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, that's the commentary. The commentary is that we're always in the process of understanding ourselves, our circumstances, and the world that we live in better. And,
Right.
And as storytellers, ultimately, that's our objective, whether that be a very subjective process of going through processes like these to try and understand ourselves better, and through that process being able to share that with other human beings that can empathize with that, and you shed you light a light on an aspect of their lives which had been hidden, which
Right.
ultimately would be a cathartic event.
Sure.
Or it's one of trying to understand the world that we live in better for the sake of, through that understanding, trying to amend our behavior in the way that we treat one another
Sure.
as human beings. So that's the importance. That's the importance of what we do, and that we can do it with
That and entertaining people.
of course, but it's through that entertainment ultimately, and we can do that through making it all about yucks, or we can do a drama, or we can do a thriller, or a psychological thriller, or a horror movie. All
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
entertaining means Remember when we were talking about genre?
But if you'll allow
Yeah.
me, my point is that it's that universality that is going to make the story more appealing to more people.
Sure. I
Do you
agree.
agree with that?
Sure.
Oh my God, I'm so happy we have this on camera. I have proof.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. And finally, one other a comment. And I know that this is an important subject matter to you, and I just want to give you an opportunity to share it with people because I know that you really like to share it with people, and that is free play.
Oh my gosh.
If you can just basically talk about that book. Later, we're gonna have we're gonna get it linked into the index of this interview.
Sure.
But you should make people aware of it.
All right. So Free Play is a book written by a guy who used to be the concert master of the New York Philharmonic. His name is Stephen Nachmanovitch. The subtitle of the book is The Art of Improvisation. And I always start by explaining all of that because a lot of people think it's kind of ironic that a guy who's a classical musician is talking about improvisation. It is, I think, along with the book that I mentioned last time, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It would probably rank in the top 2 or 3 most important books I've read as an artistic person. And basically, what Nachmanovitch does in this book is he makes the argument that all art is improvisation. That there's no separation. There's not like this other kind of art and then improvisation. All of art is improvisation. And the way that the improvisation takes its shape is by the artist having to work with what he calls arbitrary obstacles, and having to figure out a way to work through them or around them or over them or, or what have you. He uses, for example, the example of Picasso and his blue series of paintings. And what he explains is how, a painter has all of the as a painter, Picasso had all of the normal obstacles that any painter would have. What surface am I going to paint on? What colors am I going to use? What type of paint am I going to use? Am I going to use a brush? Am I going to use a knife? What kind of brush? What kind of knife? Or something else to apply the paint? So on and so forth. Those are the arbitrary obstacles, perspective, and all that sort of stuff. Those are the arbitrary obstacles that every artist has to deal with. His conceit was he gave himself another arbitrary obstacle, which was that he could only use shades of blue. And the improvisation that resulted in all of those paintings was, how am I going to deal with only being able to paint with blue? Okay? The same thing is true for a writer, right? As a writer, you have the arbitrary obstacles of character, of story, of genre, of all the things we've talked about tonight about structure and concept, and those are your arbitrary obstacles. And as you are developing your script, your story, it's all just an improvisation, how you're going to work around all those things, right? And then you start to give yourself more limits, right? So Picasso had blue, right? Well, you could have, my main character doesn't want to live anymore. That becomes another thing, another arbitrary obstacle that you have to work around that helps shape the improvisation. You talked about jazz musicians earlier, right?
Well, this is something that sketch comedy troupes or improv troupes are very familiar with. The tighter the structure of the improv or the sketch, the more everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, but it's there's no paint by numbers. There's no only one way it can happen. It's just knowing what and that's what process is really all about, at least as a writer. It's about knowing what the obstacles are, the arbitrary obstacles are, so that you can play with them and know what you're working around, and so that they become things that stimulate your imagination and force you to improvise in new and different ways to work with them and deal with them. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks so much.
Sure,
Kevin.
man. I
This
hope
has
it was
been-
useful.
This has been really, really informative and a pleasure for me as usual to have these opportunities. We never do. We work together, but we never get these opportunities to talk about in such detail.
Oh my God. My button's been open this whole time and no one told me.
That's all right.
Now you get to see my fat belly for the rest of eternity.
Wes,
Maria, where are you when I need you?
I should unbutton. Anyway, we also had questions about this guy back here, Tommy.
Yes, that's Tommy.
There's where is he? Can you see him? Tommy, get up. No,
Wow.
That's
I
Tom.
can't believe we just went an hour and 45 minutes.
I don't think it was in for an hour and 45 minutes. We had your belly out. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you. I hope it was useful.
It is. It is. Bye,
And by the
guys.
way, if you are interested in the seminar, go to the page and read all the details. That page is, whether you're a member or a non-member of MyTV, you can go to this page. It's http://on.mytv.tv/screenwriting-class. Or you can just go to on.mytv.tv and click on the Learn main navigation menu. Read all the details there and then send me an email with your schedule. The seminar is free, and we're going to start it up as soon as there are enough people who are committed to it.
Sound good?
I hope so.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.